Licensed games were abundant back in the day, and the 6th gen was no slouch in this area. While not all of them were amazing games, many do provide some quality entertainment, and furthermore, many are actually hidden gems. While I have covered several licensed games episodes, today is a continuation to highlight even more of these, and more so, the lesser discussed ones. With that being said, let's dive right into the topic of forgotten licensed GameCube games. First up is The Scorpion King: Rise of the Akkadian, published by Universal Interactive and developed by Point of View. Remember how The Mummy Returns had The Rock in his theatrical debut, playing a silent character named the Scorpion King, with some of the worst CGI we'd seen in a movie? Yeah, remember how that character was so liked that they decided to make a spin-off movie about him? Well, here is the licensed game about The Rock being The Rock. This action beat 'em up has you seeing the rise of the Scorpion King, as it showcases how he started from small beginnings and gained the name that he received. You will start off learning the combat basics in a pretty fairly awkward tutorial. You can use quick attacks and strong attacks while also throwing enemies the Rock way. As you explore levels, there will be stat upgrades that you can find hidden in objects or within the ground and walls that appear weak to attack. These upgrades will boost your strength for attacks or your stamina for special attacks. You will find weapons as you progress and can switch between them on the fly utilizing the D-pad. As stated, the game is a beat 'em up, so you basically just go into a room, defeat the number of enemies highlighted on the screen, open the next room, rinse, and repeat. Thankfully, exploring the areas has its rewards, like discovering hidden permanent upgrades and red ruby gems that will let you unlock bonus content to check out. Visually, the game is a mixed bag, running at a mostly smooth frame rate with drops here and there depending on how many enemies are on screen. The Rock's voiceover work is about what you'd expect, and it's fine, but the combat music here is incredibly repetitive. Thankfully, the exploration music feels a little bit more atmospheric and suitable. The problem is that there's more of the combat music than the actual exploration music due to just, well, how much combat you're going to be in. I have to be honest, the combat in this game is a bit weak and weightless. There are combos you can pull off to your moveset, but the combat controls just feel stiff and unresponsive at times. Even the hits, when registered, just have no impact to them, and several hits don't even register when comboing. I will say, this was a mindlessly entertaining and hilarious at the same time game, thanks to the funny physics like the Rock going flying when he gets hit, or the glitches I came across within the first 30 minutes of play. Overall, it's not a terrible game, and I still got mild entertainment from it, but it's essentially just a run-of-the-mill game for a generic movie. That being said, if you're a fan of The Rock or beat 'em ups and looking for something cheap to play on the GameCube, well, the Scorpion King might actually fit the bill for you.
Good luck.
Luck doesn't come into it.
And speaking of The Rock, here is another game he's in called WWE Crush Hour, published by THQ and developed by Pacific Coast Power and Light. So WWE Crush Hour is definitely one of the most bizarre games to come about from the WWE license. While there are a healthy amount of wrestling games on the GameCube, WWE Crush Hour is essentially what happens when you randomly think of Twisted Metal and decide to make the WWE duke it out in car combat. You will choose one of your favorite wrestlers like Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, The Undertaker, and many more, as well as many unlockable ones. Each wrestler has their own unique stats for their vehicle, as well as vehicles that match their personality design-wise, and then you're off to take on the season, trying to win the top spot of it all. You will face off against other wrestlers in decent-sized arenas, littered with weapons to pick up and utilize, like a ramming plow, laser-guided missiles, grenade launchers, and more. You can utilize your standard laser to fire away at enemies, which at least has unlimited ammo, and you can also ram into opponents to chip away at damage. Vehicles handle fairly arcade-like, and once you get used to combining the handbrake with turning, you'll be taking down opponents with a bit more ease. Each course is pretty neat, with hazards that come into play to make things more interesting. Hell in the Cage is a pyramid-like arena that opens up as time goes on, and you'll have to watch out for falling in the lava pit. There's also the Lumberyard that has a saw that can damage you or opponents if you're not careful when driving through. Then, of course, are the stadium-like settings, trying to emulate the feel of a wrestling arena with car combat flair, of course. I have to say though, this is something that always seemed like a very bizarre concept, but what's here is quite solid, and it's a good car combat game for the GameCube. I do wish there was some in-game music, as it was odd playing without any music to match the gameplay, but it was humorous hearing the wrestlers mock each other when you've defeated them. Overall, I'd say if you like Twisted Metal and want something like that for the GameCube, WWE Crush Hour is a surprisingly good one.
Who in the blue hell are you? A high-speed ram there, by the line. The Rock says, just bring it, jabroni. Just bring it.
Next up is Hot Wheels Velocity X, published by THQ and developed by Beyond Games. The Hot Wheels property is one as old as time can tell, and the amount of games the IP would receive is quite impressive. For the first one on the 6th gen consoles, Velocity X is a unique one, as it's a blend of vehicular combat and racing. The game has an adventure mode that has you play as Max Justice. What a badass name. Seriously, who wouldn't want that name? And falls into a scenario that finds his crewmate and father in danger and does what he can to stop the gangs responsible. The game's adventure has you tackle various objective-based missions throughout open zone structured levels. You can equip default weapons to use, as well as equipping new weapons to use on the fly that can be collected within the environments. Gang members will occasionally appear, and you can either use your weapons to destroy them or ram into them with your car. You will also have nitro equipped on the car, and you can do tricks in the air with the analog stick and L and R triggers as well. When landing these correctly, this will also net you more nitro on your gauge. Each car in the game has different attributes like speed and armor, and you can unlock even more cars as you progress. When you're not tackling the adventure mode, there is a challenge mode you can take on, which leads to unlocking new vehicles, weapons, and levels. These consist of things like checkpoint races, as well as various other objectives within a tight time limit. Then there's the drag race, which is a bit deceiving by name, as these are essentially just point A to point B races and are within the open area zones I mentioned. But it is actually a little bit confusing to find your way around, even with the arrow assisting you above. Then there's also a battle mode, since the game pushes heavily on the vehicular combat, and the joyride mode just to free roam. I will say, this one is okay from the time I put in so far. I like the aesthetics of the game and some of the ideas it implements, but I wasn't a fan of how the cars handled, which felt a bit stiff, and the animations were janky when turning at times. The performance is a bit all over the place. The frame rate drops a lot when you're colliding into objects, and the game also tries to hit 60 frames a second, and it just feels like an uneven experience. If you're looking for something very unique within the Hot Wheels property though, or you also like vehicular combat games, Velocity X may be one for you to give a look. Next up is the second Hot Wheels title for the GameCube, Hot Wheels World Race, published by THQ and developed by Climax. Based on the TV show of the same name that was created by Mainframe Entertainment, whom did the amazing Beast Wars reboot and Spider-Man the new animated series, Hot Wheels World Race has you choosing from a cast of characters, each from within a designated team and with their own attributes. You will tackle various leagues, racing against 5 other racers, and speeding your way through a variety of futuristic courses. Throughout racetracks, you will need to hit boost pads to get ahead of the pack, while also collecting coins that not only build up your nitro gauge, but also lead you to unlocking more characters to play as. As you race through courses, there will be jumps you'll go off of, and you can do tricks with the vehicle, like barrel rolls and flips done with the analog stick movement, but you can also combine it with button presses as shown on screen to further increase that combo. Landing these successfully will build up your nitro gauge as well, but messing up could be very costly, giving it a nice risk and reward system. The tracks themselves are really fun to drive through, and I always look forward to the next course to experience. Aside from the league mode, there's a quick race and time trial options if you're looking for some additional modes to take on. There is also a challenge mode which acts as the game's tutorial essentially, and there are about 5 of these to tackle, which leads to unlocking a vehicle as well. It's a good way to get your bearings in the controls and the overall mechanics. Visually, the game looks really good, with vibrant visuals, good lighting, and solid texture work, and the techno soundtrack fits the game quite well. I will say, the controls for steering the vehicles is a bit more stiff than I'd prefer, and drifting never quite felt natural to pull off. However, what's here is a surprisingly solid game that I would deem even hidden gem status worthy. If you're a fan of futuristic arcade racers or even Hot Wheels in general, Hot Wheels World Race is one worth giving a look. Between this and Velocity X, this is definitely the one I'd recommend out of the two. Next up is Animaniacs, The Great Edgar Hunt, published by Ignition Entertainment and developed by Warthog. The Animaniacs were a big part of the 90s, with its fun, endearing characters, to the infamous introduction to Pinky and the Brain's taking over the world line, and more. While during its popularity, it received games on the Genesis, Super Nintendo, and Game Boy, it was a big surprise to see a new game based on the property released for the 6th gen back then. The Great Edgar Hunt is a 3D platformer that is very much akin to the likes of Super Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie, and even a little bit of Gex Enter the Gecko. This platformer has you venturing through the Warner Brothers studio sets, finding Edgars instead of Oscars across various movies. You'll start off by controlling Yakko initially, and as you progress, you will gain access to play as both Dot and Wacko as well, at which point you can access these checkpoint doors to swap characters. You'll have access to triple jump mechanics, hovering, and using a weapon to swat enemies with, whether it's an overhead slam or swing. The combat is interesting as well, in which you must find a window of opportunity before being able to attack an enemy without taking damage. The game has quite a variety going for it too, like this sequence where you must save Dot from being run over by a runaway freight train, as well as boss battles. There are also Pinky and the Brain minigame sequences that break up the platforming, and these are actually kind of fun. I recall the reviews not being anything great for this back in the day, but I have to say, I was really enjoying my time with this one. The visuals are pleasing on the eyes, and the audio, while more on the basic side in terms of sound effects, does exactly what it needs to do as far as platformers go. The camera can be a little finicky and get caught up at times, but you can simply press the Z button to lock that camera right back behind you and make things a little bit more functional again. It's a fun, varied platformer that has humor incorporated as well, and the whole cast reprise their roles here. It is a bit on the pricier side, but if you enjoy 3D platformers, Animaniacs The Great Edgar Hunt is a hidden gem and one I look forward to finishing and reviewing on the channel in the near future.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hello, I'm like Big Chief Sitting Bison.
You know, I've never seen a bison actually sitting. They must need one big chair.
My name was like totally passed down from my ancestors, okay? Technically, I am Big Chief Sitting Bison the 6th.
Well, I'm Yakko the First. Nice to meet you, Chief. May I call you Chief? It sure would save time if I didn't have to say your entire name.
Next up is Ed, Edd, and Eddy, The Mis-Edventures, published by Midway and developed by A2M. Based off the hit Cartoon Network show of the same name, Ed, Edd, and Eddy is all about essentially three stooges that are friends, all with the name Ed, doing mischievous things in the neighborhood. In this game, featuring the prank-natured boys, you'll go through various levels trying to reach the end goal so that you can ultimately do the prank that the mission is focused on. You will take control of all three Eds, each having specific things that they can excel at. Ed, for example, can do a ground pound to pick up objects and throw them, while Ed, or Double D, can activate certain switches and technological aspects, while also having a slingshot that he could use. And Eddy gets to use stink bombs, but he doesn't seem to have any special. You can switch to any character on the fly, and you can even do co-op moves in a sense, like this 3-person barrage run that breaks heavy objects, or this co-op jump move. While the game initially starts off within a level, upon completing that level you will be in the main hub world, which is within the cul-de-sac. Here you can freely explore as well as tackle the next mission along the way, or even revisit previous missions if you want to go back and find any collectibles that you missed. My time with this one so far seemed like it was a decent one, but I will say the controls weren't too great, with the camera control feeling restrictive at times, and the visuals, while capturing the goofiness of the show itself, still does seem a bit rough. Not to mention, you'll probably get sick of the show's theme song since it's used in the main menu and pause menu on constant repeat. But if you're a fan of the show, it's a fairly solid game that'll capture the show's essence in game form. And continuing the Cartoon Network lineup of games, next up is Codename Kids Next Door Operation Video Game, published by Global Star Software and developed by High Voltage Software. This title has players take control of the Sector V team of Kids Next Door as you take on the various villains from the TV show. This all-original storyline begins with the Toilinator attacking the Treehouse HQ, and Number 1 must defeat him to free his friends. Once doing so, it appears that Sector V gets called in that some of the worst foes they've dealt with have escaped the Arctic-based prison, and it's up to you all to put a stop to them. This platformer has you play as various characters in a fairly unique linear premise. Playing as Number 1, the game is essentially like playing Ratchet & Clank, in which you not only platform, but use weapons to fire away at enemies, lock on, strafe, and jump. Then there's Number 4, which introduces a bit more stealth gameplay, but can use her fists and feet to defeat enemies in her path. Then there's Number 2, which will resort to having to play aerial combat missions, which really changes up the pace into a little bit more of a shoot 'em up. The mechanics are varied and keep the game feeling fresh. As you progress, you can find 2x4 parts, which when acquiring all the ones needed in a level, will provide that character with an upgrade. Number 1, for example, will get a new weapon to fire away, while Number 4 may get a new item to help discover new areas. The game looks quite good, with a rock-solid 60 frames a second going as well, and the texture work seems pretty nice. I will say, the movement speed though, it felt really slow for my taste, and the camera can get kinda finicky. However, if you're looking for a varied platformer, Codename Kids Next Door Operation Video Game is one that may be worth checking out. It's definitely one of the much lesser known titles for the GameCube. Next up is Dinotopia, the Sunstone Odyssey, published by TDA Media Active and developed by Vicious Cycle. Based on the book series Dinotopia, this action-adventure title has you playing as Drake, not Nathan Drake, whose father was just killed by a T-Rex outside of Dinotopia. Upon being stranded on Dinotopia for years, Drake and his twin brother have an argument in which his brother leaves to join a group known as the Outsiders, while Drake has been bestowed the title of Guardian of Dinotopia, and must protect a village that allows both humans and dinosaurs to live amongst each other. You will be tackling a bunch of quests for various people and dinosaurs, which typically reside as fetch quests or defeat this person mentioned. You can freely explore Dinotopia using a trolley system that brings you to the destination you want, but each destination also links to a different part of the land that you can go to, since Dinotopia is a village up in the treetops. You will have a staff that has a mallet head mounted on top of it, and you can use that to take on enemies that try to stop you along the way. Combat is quite simple, if a bit dull to be honest. You can block and dodge attacks, and as you defeat enemies to earn XP, you can unlock new moves to use in the combat to help flesh it out a bit more. You will also collect Sunstones, which you can equip a certain amount to the mallet head of your choice to enhance the power of that staff, as well as providing magic abilities to use in combat. The game opens up furthermore later on when you get the chance to either fly or ride a dinosaur, which is a neat aspect. As for exploration, I will say the movement is a lot slower than I'd like here as well, and I wish there was more of a run button to speed things up a bit. I get that the game is a slower paced experience, but the slow run really drags the pacing down. Worse yet, the game has an autosave feature that's not quite that reliable, and this is the only way to safely save the game and shut it off. While that normally wouldn't sound like an issue, I went for over 30 minutes waiting for a save spot to stop because I had to go do an errand and was stuck playing all the way till I could save. The visuals are fairly generic with no facial animations happening when characters speak, and the textures being a pretty mixed bag. The environments are fine, but I do wish that the textures were a little bit more detailed. Coming from the team that made Robotech Battlecry, which is one of the best licensed games on the console, this one lacks the same level of care that game was given. The audio is also pretty unmemorable, with poor voice acting. They seem to say wonderful a lot.
Wonderful, wonderful. Be a wonderful party now.
It sought to harm this wonderful land.
And forgettable music. But despite some aspects that hold it back, if you're looking for something a bit different for an adventure game, Dinotopia is a licensed game that may still interest you. Next up is Looney Tunes Back in Action, published by Electronic Arts and developed by V.I.D.E.O.G.A.M.E. Based off the movie of the same name, Back in Action has you trekking the globe as both Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck as you must reclaim the blue monkey diamond that was stolen from Daphne by Acme Corporation. The game is essentially a collectathon platformer in which you must complete tasks that await throughout the journey. Things like taking down wanted posters that Daffy is in hiding from, or helping iconic characters like Granny, Foghorn Leghorn, and Pepe Le Pew, to name a few. In doing so, you will nab monkeys, which are trying to find the one that has the diamond. As you collect money, you will be able to unlock new areas to fly to and further explore for objectives to complete, as well as more collectibles to nab. The game does a good job balancing gameplay between both Bugs and Daffy, in which you can instantly swap between both characters at almost any time, and the game saves their precise location when swapping, even when you're in a different area entirely, which is a nice touch. Each have their own strengths as well. Bugs can burrow into the terrain and find hidden money, as well as double jump and use costumes for certain occasions. Daffy can hover when jumping and can also safely swim in the water. Both can defend themselves using either Bugs' wooden mallet or Daffy's frying pan, and can also roll into objects to break as well. The visuals do a good job capturing the aesthetic of Looney Tunes itself, and the audio captures the feel of the show and movie by having the voice actors reprise their roles as all the Looney Tunes characters. Aside from the main campaign is a traffic attack mode, which is a really fun minigame that has you playing as Wile E. Coyote, riding a rocket trying to catch up to Roadrunner in an endless mode. It's all about what the fastest speed you can hit is, and you get 3 tries to see how far you can get. This mode is quite addictive in and of its own. Looney Tunes Back in Action is not only a solid platformer, but one of the better Looney Tunes games available. Although, my favorite will still always be the Sunsoft Game Boy and Game Boy Color game. And to wrap things up is Wallace and Gromit in Project Zoo, published by V.I.D.E.O.G.A.M.E. Entertainment and developed by Frontier Developments. That's right, the same Frontier Developments that made Roller Coaster Tycoon. This platformer has you taking control of the teaming duo, more specifically Gromit, as they get into quite the adventure. Wallace and Gromit had recently adopted a baby polar bear, Archie, and upon visiting him at the local zoo for his birthday, the whole zoo has been locked down and taken control of under Feathers McGraw. The duo find a way to disguise themselves to get into the heavily guarded zoo and try to rescue Archie. As you take control of Gromit, you'll be able to platform your way through fairly expansive levels, while also fending off against foes using melee or weapons like your banana launcher here. There are a variety of collectibles to go for here, and several are required to advance through levels. Occasionally, you will need X number of nuts and bolts, or even X number of tools collected that will give Wallace the resources needed to open a path through the level, or that allows him to catch up to Gromit, as both characters will need to reach the end of the level to advance. The game captures the claymation aesthetic both in cutscenes and when Wallace's talking animation kicks in during gameplay, and the overall presentation is pretty high quality. Furthermore, the visuals overall are quite strong, with great art direction and draw distance, as well as nice lighting. The game grabs your attention right from the opening level's scale. It even runs at 60 frames a second, which is always nice to see in action. There are times when you may come across hidden bonus levels as well, and these will certainly challenge your platforming skills. You will also collect coins scattered throughout levels to unlock bonus features in the game's main menu. There's a good amount of variety here as well, like boss battles that may have you use a different set of moves to fend the boss off with, or even vehicle segments later on in the game. The movement controls are a little bit floaty and weighty and take some time acclimating to, but there's no denying how much I was enjoying my time with this one so far. Definitely one I want to return to, finish, and review proper on the channel one day. As stated, there was no shortage of licensed games on the GameCube, and here were 10 more to highlight. So, have you played any of these titles? Any that interest you now? Sound off in the comments below, as I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more GameCube-centric content. And if you enjoyed discovering these licensed games, be sure to check out the other various licensed games episodes I've done that I will have links for in the description down below. Additionally, shout out to my GCG Nation enthusiasts, Local S'mores Pop-Tart, Retro Wolf, and Alejandro Mendoza for further supporting the channel. If you really enjoy the content and are interested in further supporting the channel, click that join button, and for $2 a month, you'll get early access to videos, membership shoutouts and videos, and exclusive icons that I made that go next to your username when commenting. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will catch you all in the next episode, GCG Nation.